This episode is about the road less traveled. You know, in Singapore, do you find it hard to so-called take on unconventional career paths? We have different interests, different inclinations, but somehow the practical side of us might be afraid to take risks. Today, we have an urban farmer to share more with us. Let's find out about his journey and the challenges he faced along the way. How does he manage his finances? How does he handle friends and family who might not understand why he's taking a pay cut to pursue a lifestyle and a dream that speaks to his heart? If you're feeling a bit lost in your own life, wondering what is it that you're meant to do in this lifetime and how you can actually do it, this episode might give you some inspiration and tips. Hello, my name is Andrew and welcome to another Chill with TFC episode. In this series, we talk to interesting people with relevant experience and insights to help us learn from their perspectives so that we can create the life we love and manage our finances well. My guest has years of experience in sustainable food production as an urban farmer. He helps businesses and individuals to be more sustainable through regenerating our food system. He's educating people, he's helping the world to be more green, but not everybody can understand the path that he has taken. I mean, he has a degree in aerospace engineering, and right now he is a farmer. What's being a farmer like in Singapore? How do you jump in to pursue an unconventional path in life? Let's hear from Christopher Leow. And just to get our listeners of Chill with TFC up to speed about your background and to get us to know who you are, tell us a bit about your story and how did you become a farmer?
Yeah, I'm an urban farmer in Singapore, something that's quite rare. So I definitely didn't plan to be a farmer. You know, many years ago, I studied aerospace engineering, and I slowly got interested in food. Happened to be working in a cafe during my uni days, and then bit by bit, I really got very, very immersed in this whole world of food, and fell down a rabbit hole and wanted to find out how food was grown eventually. And so I did travel, and at one point I lived in a farm in Australia, and the experience of living off-grid, actually that gave me a lot of inspiration to become a farmer.
Tell us about what do you mean by living off-grid?
So this family, they had their own power, like using solar. They had their own rainwater collection. They grew their own food. So imagine if there was a disaster or a blackout in the city, right? They'll still be, chilling at home, having tea, and everything will be okay. So they were disconnected from the main grid, and yet they were living very fulfilling, very meaningful lives.
What led to the decision to move around? And did you chance upon this place in Australia that with this family that's living off-grid by chance?
So actually, it wasn't an instant decision. I was a few years. I had been in this no man's land or this very gray area in my life where I knew that I didn't want to pursue engineering, and I was started being involved in the food industry. But I also felt like being a chef or a restaurant owner wasn't my thing. So I actually got very frustrated in Singapore, and I decided to travel and just just have no plans and really just see the world and get inspiration. So I literally bought a one-way ticket without knowing what I was going to do next with my life.
Was that Australia already or somewhere else?
Australia was the third country.
Okay.
Yeah.
One-way ticket.
One-way ticket, indeed.
Some will call that quarter-life crisis.
Definitely. It was definitely a quarter-life crisis. Yeah.
Right. I've been through my own version of quarter-life crisis. Asking about what you want to do, right? And what's next? And is this really what I want? And so you were just searching and you chance upon this, family that's living off-grid. And how does that lead to you becoming a farmer eventually?
The main thing that struck me was how they actually were able to live a very meaningful life with very, very little financial inputs needed. Basically, they grow their own food, they eat it, and done. End of story. Whereas I felt like in Singapore, there was this whole, a lot of fat. You have to do a job that, often you don't like, to pay for a house, buy food, spend a lot of money, and it was a lot of unnecessary things, and people often weren't very happy with life. So if I could be like them, just go direct, have your basic needs covered, your accommodation and food covered. You can build your own house with your own hands, grow your own food. It made a lot of sense.
So did you immediately become a farmer when you came back to Singapore?
So
or how
when
does
I
that
came,
work?
when I came back to Singapore, I started searching out to find people who are doing similar things, and I did find them, and I started volunteering with different farms. However, again, I was pressured by the Singapore, the social pressure of monetary needs, and I actually took a detour. I couldn't commit, or I didn't dare to commit myself fully into being a farmer. So for the next few years, I went back into food to do something with a slightly higher salary. And eventually, I realized that, you know what, I'm just going to commit and just do this farming thing. The opportunity came up. The irony is that the pay for that job was a lot lower than what I was offered many years ago. um, but still, at that point, I just knew, it was a thing for me that I had to do.
You wanted to
Yeah.
try it out.
Yeah.
And in a committed way, not just like,
Absolutely.
testing waters.
Absolutely,
Right. You
yeah.
plunge yourself into it, right? So what did your friends and family say? You mentioned there's the pressure of being back in this society, choosing to be a farmer in Singapore.
It was really, really tough lah. Because if you go for any social gathering with your friends, they're always talking about
What do you do?
what do you do? Then always comparing their salaries and talking about their BMW, how whose car is bigger and all that. So when it came to me, I was just always felt very shy. I just didn't know how to explain to them my lifestyle choice. They just gave me that look, like they didn't understand. They're like, why do you want to be so poor?
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
and for family it was just as hard because obviously they spent a lot of money for me to have a good education, and they felt that I'm literally washing it away to do a job that is so dirty and just not didn't have good prospects at that time. So it was a very, very tough journey back then.
Okay, so friends, family. Let me ask about the friends first, because I would think that among friends, this would be an interesting career choice. Well, if you're talk about it in the Singaporean context, and I thought they might be more curious, instead of like comparing like your wages, how much money you're getting, that kind of thing. So you still feel that comparison.
So back then, definitely, I think they just naturally they can't help it. That's all they know. A lot of them work in banking or in real estate, so they just can't help it but give such comments. Of course, now it's a bit different. Now it seems to be more trendy, and when you say you are a farmer, they're like, "Wow, so cool!"
Yeah, but I guess with family it's a bit harder.
Yeah.
I guess there's also the aspect. I mean, mentioned like, okay, they're looking at their son doing so-called dirty work with
Yeah.
open inverted commas. But do you think there's the angle whereby they are just concerned about, whether you will be happy and whether you will be well taken care of?
I think absolutely. My parents ultimately they just fear. Their biggest fear is that I'm not able to take care of myself lah. But I think I've found a way lah, found a niche through hustling and going through really tough times. But I'm able to take care of myself. I also contribute to the family fund. So I think they have come around, and
How many years has it been?
I would say this whole journey took about 10 years.
10 years. So you've been into urban farming for 10 years.
I've been in food and farming. So farming about 5 years, food in about 5 years.
Okay.
But the whole detour
That's right.
to get to where I am was about 10 years.
Right. So over this period of time, your family has seen you. I mean, you've also communicated with them. You've demonstrated that, okay, you can contribute to the family fund, and therefore that puts their mind at ease a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe there's the aspect of like, do you think people have the impression that being a farmer is hard work? Maybe they don't want their son to be doing hard work.
Yeah, that is also a very good point because, my mom, she did grew up in a very poor environment. She did go through a very, very hard life. So she doesn't want us to go through that as well. But I love doing it, so it's a bit hard to explain to her. But I like the pain.
You like the pain, right?
I like
It's hard work, but at the end, you find it meaningful, right? So let's demystify the hard work part a little bit. What does an urban farmer do?
It is very operational. So I would do things like sowing seeds to grow young plants. I would also do things like amending or improving the soil, making compost or adding fertilizer to the soil to make it better. And also be harvesting vegetables for restaurants or, in personal capacity for myself or family. That is essentially the production side of urban farming. Now, I've also done other aspects of urban farming, like business development, client-facing stuff, going to offices and business meetings all the time. I've also done the general management side of things, which is all very corporate-y, and I spend all day looking in the Excel spreadsheet, dealing with people. So, actually, urban farming doesn't just have to be being out in the sun lah, and and even the production side, it is quite diverse because you have not only soil-based farms that are outdoors where it is quite hot, yes, but you also have indoor farms where it is an air-conditioned environment usually, and sometimes I do random gigs here and there. Like I've recently been involved in a fish farm. Yeah, so get to play with fish and water.
Is that like a lateral kind of move? Sort of using your
it
knowledge in one
was-
area and apply it to.
Well, the opportunity came up quite randomly. I had a bit of spare time, but everything that I learned does fit into the bigger ecosystem of what I'm doing. So I'm also teaching in a polytechnic in agriculture. So all the lessons, every single lesson that I've learned, all the stories, actually I'm able to value add while teaching.
As you're sharing, I have this mental image of what you described earlier about the family that's living off grid. I get a sense that it's always going back to that and that which you felt and that you might want to share it with more people.
Yeah, exactly. The values that I learned with that family, I think one of the main ones is really about resiliency. Going through all these really, really difficult situations. The climate is always changing. Sometimes you get drought, sometimes you get floods, but you still figure out a way to overcome these challenges. The second value that I learned is just using your own hands and legs and your own abilities to carve your own future, to create your own success. They don't have, and it's just physically not accessible to get certain equipment or labor, so they just figure out how to do everything by themselves. Yeah, and that spirit I take with me in what I'm doing, and I feel like as Singaporeans, maybe that's something that is lacking because maybe we don't go through enough tough times to really ask ourselves or force ourselves to be more resilient and more resourceful.
So when you live with that family, you have certain expectations or ideals about what your life could be, and you went for it, right? So do you think it fulfills what you thought back then after you've been through your experience, 10 years, 5 years in farming itself?
Yeah, I definitely can definitely always link back and feel like everything that I've learned back there, I'm definitely applying it now in a Singapore context. Because obviously I can't build my own house. It's not physically possible. But the values that I've learned, I can apply it in our local urban context. And maybe I can't grow food fully for myself, but I am doing it in a professional capacity. So it's very, very transferable. And even though similarly, like people say you threw away your university degree, but no, I think a lot of the knowledge and the thought process through learning it is also very applicable. Like as an engineer, you learn to create, innovate things and optimize processes and systems. And in the same way, in a farm, that's the same thing you're always trying to do. You're always trying to optimize processes. Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest lesson you've learned from this journey? One or two lessons, something that comes to mind.
Yeah, I think especially I spend a lot of time in nature and a lot of time being able to observe nature. Something interesting is that in nature, death of something actually becomes life. So, for example, you see, let's say, a bird that has died. Immediately, it starts to decompose and it becomes food for the bacteria, the insects, and other animals. And then in that same area where the bird has died, a new plant or grass will sprout, and it'll be much healthier. So in our modern or Singapore life, that can be applied in so many aspects. Like if one opportunity closes, that doesn't mean the end. It just means it's an opportunity to start something new. If you get retrenched, try something new. So yeah, death. So I don't look at the dying of something or the ending of something as something to fear anymore. I always look at how else can I use it as an opportunity what are the new opportunities that come out of this situation or crisis.
There's a more on the deeper aspect of the kind of lessons that you've learned, right? And how do you think it affects the way you view life or your relationships with people around you?
I think it's allowed me to have a more laid back approach because, in Singapore, we always love to plan, create contingencies, redundancies, like plan until, and think of every single risk that might happen. But you just can't predict all these things. Like
Nature can just screw up your plans, right?
exactly. So, being able to accept that plans will get screwed up, and then it's all part of the bigger picture, and then figuring out what to do. I think that has allowed me to stay a lot more calm in times of crisis. Yeah. So like in this COVID period, actually, I've been super calm, and I've actually enjoyed a lot of the opportunities that have come up through this crisis.
I mean, some of us feel anxiety during this period of time. How do you maintain calmness during COVID?
I felt that that time being able to be by yourself allowed me to spend a lot of time to develop things that I would otherwise not have time to focus on. So I was able to do a lot of studying, do a lot of reading. Because I don't have distractions, I don't need to meet friends all the time, and it also allowed me to save money because your expenses drop so much. You don't go out anymore to have drinks or food. So it allowed me to focus internally to work on my internal game. So I think that was very helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've shared your story on media and perhaps at some events where you share more about your whole background as an urban farmer. Do people come up to you and say, Christopher, I also want to take on a different path, as compared to the traditional career paths that Singaporeans usually take? Do people share that with you?
Yeah, I'm fortunate that a few people have reached out to me
Okay.
and they did ask me,
How did you do it?
how do I do it? Yeah, and they definitely could resonate in going through maybe a job that they hate or they don't find it meaningful anymore. And they also either have thoughts of pursuing something else, which they might not know what it is yet, or they already have something going on at the side, but they haven't really fully jumped in or immersed themselves in.
For those who have an idea of what they might want to do, could you give us one or two examples?
Yeah, so there's this gentleman who he's an engineer by training, but his job requires him to do a lot of contractual stuff, which he doesn't like. But the pay is pretty good, stable, and he has been doing a side food business, importing products from Taiwan, and he's been doing a fairly decent job at it for 3 years, but he's only been devoting about a day a week to do the side business.
It's a side gig, part-time thing.
Yeah, a side
right?
gig, part time, and it is making money. It's not like it's not, and he has built a relatively good fan base. So he has already internally sort of thought maybe one day I might, leave this job and do it, but
He hasn't made the jump.
hasn't made a jump. And then after speaking to me, what I advised was, look, do the math and actually, are you able to have certain amount of buffer for like 2 years, or rather calculate how much buffer you have with your existing savings. Even touch wood, this side gig doesn't work out. How much time can you play with? And he did the math. He's like, oh, actually, I have about 2 years worth of buffer, and that means that if I can take this risk. So he is going to leave his job and focus on that full time. And all he needed was just that little nudge, lah.
That little nudge and that little bit of reality, because maybe we just have an idea that, okay, we're unsure about whether this will work out, but you gave him the idea to look at how much buffer you have, and for him 2 years was enough.
Yeah.
They found out 2 years as a safety buffer.
Yeah.
That's enough. What other advice do you have for them? If someone comes up to you and tell you, I want to try something unconventional, what can I do?
Yeah. When people ask me that, a lot of times they also come with a very practical, very Singaporean thing of,
Yes.
I want to try something new and I want to make sure that I immediately succeed in this new thing that I'm going to try. And then I ask, so have you, do you know exactly what you want to do yet? Or is there a reason why you're pressurizing yourself? And often you're like, oh yeah, actually I don't really know why I want to reach that success so quickly. So I for people who don't know what they want to do yet, I would say first you need to experience many things before you even have an idea whether or not you like or don't like certain things. And it might be very unrealistic and might be putting a lot of pressure on yourself to expect certain level of success. And there's no real shortcuts in this world, right? To be good at something, you need to spend time to develop the skills and be good at it. So for people who don't really have an idea, my recommendation is to um, allocate some time and money and headspace to just explore, right? This could be learning something by going for courses or traveling. Traveling is great, especially for me. It just opens up your mind, and manage your expectations for that. Like it's okay not to find something out at the end of it, and maybe that break was just what you needed in the end of it. But don't force yourself. And that's the first step. If you're lucky, if you do find something, then you can progress on to the next step, which is investing some time in developing the skills of the interest that you have found. Yeah, and I think expect that this journey was going to take a few years to be good at something. If you're lucky, 3 to 5 years to be competent and to be able to take it into a more serious level. And this can be done even at a side, as a side hustle. You don't have to pressurize yourself to jump straight into it.
It's
Yeah.
not all in, right? It's not do or
You don't,
die,
yeah, you don't
all or
have
nothing.
to. Yeah, correct.
Okay. How do you plan out your own path?
I think at the start it was definitely, I guess part of the youthful energy, just hit in and bashing through and making a lot of mistakes. Right now I'm at a stage where I feel like I've bashed enough, and I want to focus my next part of my career on actually being good, actually being proficient in my craft. So, for example, the next year, I just want to focus on the actual technical skills of farming. So I just started. I just did an online course on, compost making, and I have all the list of things that I want to study and practice on all these technical skills. Yeah. So I just want to be very very focused because in the end goal, I kind of know what I want to do, which is to help people build and design farms. And so in order to do that, I need certain level of competency and skills.
Take an unconventional path in Singapore, right? You mentioned find out what you want first, go explore, and if you have a rough idea of what you want, go try it out,
Yeah.
test it out. You don't have to go all in. And if you're like the gentleman who started a food business, who was an engineer, and what he did was he went to do the sums and realized that, okay, I have 2 years buffer, I can go give it a shot. So then that's where you can expand a bit more. You yourself, you've done it for 5 years, and that's where you're looking at the next thing right now, building up your skills, being more proficient.
Yeah.
All right. So using that the gentleman's example of managing his finances, looking at his financial situation, right? How did you manage your finances?
Yeah. So the context is urban farming, of just farming in general. In terms of there's definitely a pay difference in pay grade depending on what you do. Of course, the management staff would pay you more, and the more operational staff would be a lot lower. Average is between like 1+ to 3K. So that is quite challenging for a young person to survive.
Cost of living is higher in Singapore.
Yeah, it is. It is quite hard. So, nonetheless, that was something like even now. That's something I want to do. So definitely that is. I need to be realistic and practical. So I have a diversified income strategy. The day job provides the cash flow, provides that stability, but it doesn't pay extremely well. I do teach, and that's a little bit of ad hoc income. And I do have some opportunistic jobs which I can activate sometimes, like working in other farms, or recently I was fortunate to have a filming gig. And then some random things come up along the way. I'm also publishing a book, and that will be a little bit of side income as well. Yeah. So these are my three main streams. And lastly, I do a little bit of investing. It's still, I would say, not enough to make a dent in my living expenses, but I'm looking towards increasing it because so far it's been fairly successful. That's it. Yeah.
Okay, I like. So you
Yeah.
have your day job, you have some side income, side gigs, money
Yeah.
that's coming in here and there
Yeah.
to supplement a bit of your expenses.
Yeah.
And right now, when do you start investing?
About almost 3 years ago. Yeah.
3 years ago.
About 3 years
and,
ago.
and you said it's been pretty good, right? So how
Yeah.
would you rate what did you do as an
Oh,
investor?
so actually, I started out trying out different platforms because back then I was considering using a fund manager to help me invest, and then I was in the end I didn't do it because I felt like the cut to give him was too much, and then I explored using some of these softwares or platforms that help you. They use algorithms and you just key in your objectives. And then I tried that for about a year plus two, and then it didn't really get me any returns. So then I just started directly investing in using trading platforms in index funds and stocks. So
Okay.
yeah, that seems to be doing it's been a positive return, steadily increasing ever since I started that.
So you're mainly into index funds and stocks, some active stock picking of your own.
Yeah.
Okay. So 3 years ago, what was it that got you to start thinking about investing?
Um, well, it just made a lot of sense when I saw the math. How, yeah, you definitely can grow your money in a very smart way with very little effort.
You're kind of more stable in your job. You see
Yeah.
your side income gigs coming in.
Yeah.
And then you realize that, okay, now you have some money that you can invest,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
Right. So any other financial tips they will have for someone who might want to take an unconventional path and something that might not pay as well right from the start? What should they look out for in terms of finances and the harsh realities of life?
So personally, I have actually had a huge change of lifestyle. I was forced to do it because of the income being fairly low. But that actually made me realize that I could live with a lot less. So I guess the advice would be, yeah, look deeply in your current lifestyle and actually, are you able to reduce that cost? Because if lower costs, then you need lower inputs. You have a lower, you don't need as much income, right? And that also expands your options. Because I think especially if you're starting out in a new career, in a new field that you're not so familiar with, it does take time to climb that ladder of competency. And it's not that you can't start from a management level or BD level, but then you do lose out, having that time to really understand being on the ground and understand the industry. And if you're stuck in that management level, if it suits you, that go for it, man. But I found a lot of value just working through, being able to be, on an entry level, or being very hands-on on the ground. That eventually helps my career in a much more holistic level. Yeah.
Right. So let me take away the finance lens a little bit and pull it out to be more generic. So what other tips and advice do you have for someone who comes up to you and tell you I want to try out something new?
I would definitely advise to just do it.
Okay.
I mean, with some pragmatism, I think intuitively people have a strong feeling or sensing what interests them, what motivates them, what gets them excited. And I feel like we don't have enough people who get excited in the morning, like, yeah, I want to do this. Because the moment you do find that thing, right, the chances are you end up pursuing it much deeper naturally. No one needs to tell you, no one needs to bug you to do it, and you will achieve much greater things with that self-driven passion and interest.
Okay. Let's talk about your book.
Yeah.
Right, you've written a book. As we're recording, it's an upcoming book, but by the time you listen to this podcast, it should be out already. So, what's the title? What is it going to be about?
The title of the book is called The Freestyle Farmer. It is a short memoir of my journey as a farmer. It is a lot of funny stories that I've experienced during this time. But I think there's a lot of lessons that I've learned, a lot of different philosophies through a lot of different wisdoms that I've picked up along the way, observations I had from nature, and ultimately I think it's hopefully can serve as some form of inspiration for someone who is going through a midlife or quarter life crisis and is interested to understand my journey and how I went through and overcame this crazy roller coaster to get to where I am.
So where can we get a book, or how can I find out more about the book?
Yeah, it will be on my website, christopherleow.com, and it will be published in mid-January, but it will be ready for orders in December.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Christopher.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you for watching this video. If you found it useful, like, share, subscribe, and feel free to leave your comments. You can also join our Telegram group, follow us on social media, and sign up for our weekly newsletter. Everything is in the description. For more content, check out thefinancialcoconut.com. We do have 3 questions that we ask every guest.
Yeah.
So my first question for you would be, what is one of your core life principles?
One of my core life principles is to be like water. it's a very Lao Tzu,
Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee philosophy. So the thing about water is water flows through the path of least resistance, and water is very soft. And often when you come to challenges, like you meet a rock or something like fire, it's very hard, very hot. People's natural instinct is to clash against it or try to overcome it with ego and with power. But I found that just being soft and working around the constraints, that seems to be a lot more effective in dealing with life's challenges. Yeah, so I think my personality as well is quite calm, and I find that being able to approach all sorts of situations in a calm manner does allow me to make better decisions. Yeah.
Okay, be like water.
Yeah.
You're quite adaptable.
Yes.
Right. So, second question for you. What is one piece of financial advice that you think should be shared more often?
Ooh. Actually, this Lessons by Ray Dalio, I have his book Principles. It talks about understanding the financial market as a system, how it goes in like peaks and troughs. It moves in cycles, and I think understanding things in a system level, which is similar to how I observe nature.
It's a parallel to your death and life.
Very much, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in nature, things grow and then it comes to a decline and then it grows again. It just allows you to not make like sort of snappy decisions and see being able to see the big picture, and that also influences like how I choose to invest by understanding this philosophy.
Well, that's interesting. I would like to ask a follow-up question on that. So, I mean, given your background and your philosophy on life and you're reading Ray Dalio, so tell us more about how all of these influences the way you invest.
So I definitely look at because I'm mostly doing stocks, so I definitely am looking for something to go on a
Something that grows, like
yeah.
like a plant.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm looking for that rise, right? So I look at industries that are up and coming, I think in the next, say, 5 to 10 years. So for example, I think tech is one area that is definitely moving. And I in a similar nature way, or ecosystem way, I don't just invest in companies that are doing the actual things, but I also invest in the companies that are supporting the companies that are doing the cool stuff. So if you're a Bitcoin company, I invest in the companies that are supporting them, like people who are producing hardware for all these guys to fight it out. Because no matter what, they will still be producing. Yeah.
Okay.
So I look at the broader ecosystem of industries. And of course, then when it starts to decline, that's where I need to, when I haven't done enough research yet, but Ray's strategy is to, in his all-weather portfolio, right, is to get bonds to buffer the decline. So both ways you are ready for that. Yeah.
Right. You see how all the things are interconnected.
Exactly.
As with nature.
Exactly.
Okay. My last question for you today. What is one area of your life that you're giving additional focus right now?
I think being very mindful that life is not just about work. So I have this personal philosophy that there are three main areas in life, which is career, relationships, and self, which includes like well-being, how you feel every day. So my objective is to be as balanced as I can in these three areas, and I think it's a daily practice to be aware of where I'm, putting too much in one area, and if it's affecting the others, I need to just in the same way you call it, rebalance your portfolio. In the same way, I'm trying to rebalance my life in a constant daily practice. Yeah,
Okay. Thank you, Christopher.
yeah, pleasure.
Thank